Gary, back after the international break, it does feel like a little while since United played a game. Has everyone come back okay?
Yeah, I think so at the moment. Obviously, you get a day like today where some of the international players get back in at different times, depending on when they've played, depending on where their games were located. But I think we've had everyone back in the building today. Had a good training period, good training week. I think we've had a little bit of I think what the international break always does is, if you're in a good run of form, then of course you might lose a little bit of momentum, but at least you can reflect on some of the things you've done well. If you've perhaps not been in the run of form that you necessarily want to be, which is ourselves, then you get a good chance to really review and reflect and maybe come back with a little bit of a reset mindset, I think, for the players. And that's what we've done, really. I think it's trying to get back to a little bit of what we need to do, what we're good at, maybe a little bit more of an underdog mentality in some respects. But yeah, it's been a good period. But every manager can say that because they haven't played a game yet.
Yes, because previously at Oxford United, you were saying after the West Brom game, you were looking to find a solution to that inconsistency, those narrow defeats. Is the conclusion you've come to then that it's a mindset as much as a football tactic?
I think first and foremost, I think in this division, for us, if you look at last season, inconsistency is probably unavoidable to a certain degree, right? Because you're playing against some big teams and in a very, very difficult division. But I think it's trying to have a level of performance that's consistent regardless of the results. And I think the results then follow that. I think it's a little bit of a mindset. I think in some ways, if you look last season, particularly towards the end, but maybe when I came in as well, there's that sort of, there's that underdog battling spirit of, we're trying to survive in this division, which of course you try to change for different reasons. And maybe sort of we've meandered into this season a little bit of trying to play perhaps like a sort of mid-table team, but and getting caught in between a little bit. We spoke about that a lot, haven't we? So I think we've been pretty clear now of what we perhaps need to do. I think that a reset from a mentality point of view, I think as well, we've got to get back to really, fighting and competing and battling for every single ball and every single sort of point that we can get. And I think that's something we've probably come away from a little bit in certain ways.
Are you aware of the teams like Oxford ethos that was spoken about last season?
No, go on.
So the idea being other clubs might say, well, we can't lose to teams like Oxford.
Yeah, again, I think that, when I think you have to accept how you're perceived by the outside world. I think you have to accept where you are size-wise, budget-wise, but it doesn't mean to say you can't try to find, like we did last season, ways to negate some of those things. And I think the way you negate that is to be very, very good at what you do. And I think that's the key. You have to have something that stands out from just trying to play the same way as everyone else and coming sort of off second best in some of those games, which I think we have. I think every game's been competitive. I think every game's been pretty tight. But like we said, from sort of game 5 or 6, it felt like we were coming off second best in terms of the result to a lot of the teams. So we have to find a way to change that, of course.
You've got 3 games in 6 days. Welcome back. And the first 2 clubs that are going into matches having changed their manager.
Yeah, that's part of the championship, part of any league, but I think certainly the EFL creates a greater sort of inconsistency sometimes in terms of where you're preparing and how you're preparing, of course. I don't necessarily think Saturday's going to be that different in terms of, I presume a manager is not going to be in place quite in time. If you understand the reports, I mean, Ady's an experienced guy, did a fantastic job. Obviously there as assistant manager, did a fantastic job last week when he took the reins. And I don't expect anything other than a really organised Middlesbrough side looking to come and get 3 points. So, and then Norwich, of course, will have then had 1 game to at least see how the new manager fares. But yeah, I think it's always hard to get a consistent view of the opposition, along a whole 46 game season, because of course it changes so many times, and you have to factor that into your preparations, I think.
Finally, from me, you had 3 fullback players who play fullback out injured when you went into the international break. what news of them and anyone else coming out?
Yeah, I think out of all of those players, I'm just trying to think if I've sort of missed anyone out, but I think there's only probably Brodie that's going to be unavailable for this match. So again, it gives us greater depth, it gives us greater options. What I want to try and avoid, and it's quite difficult at the moment, I found it quite difficult this season to avoid it, but what you want to avoid is that feeling of sort of feeling like you've got to make 3-4 changes every game, because I've been at this level for a long time. I know that consistency certainly helps. That consistent message to the players certainly helps. Maybe in our sort of search for the right formula, it's been easy to change, formation. It's been easy to change players, and also I think there's a responsibility from the players' perspective to step up and make sure that you're performing so well that you don't give me a chance to leave you out of the team. But certainly we'd like to get a little bit more consistency. But players available gives me the chance to do that. So that can only be a positive.
Thank you, Gary.
Gary, Phil Crosstairs got a winning goal this week. Good for him to, I think it was the second goal for Bulgaria maybe. Anyway, how big is that for him to go and kick on at club level?
Yeah, I think sometimes any of those international players go away, you want them to have a positive match. You want them to bring back some confidence with them, some feeling of affecting a game. So for someone like Phil that's come into a new division, it's always difficult when you first come in. I think for the first 2 or 3 games, he's settled in really, really well. And then occasionally what you find with some of the players is then sort of the intensity of the championship then hits them a little bit, and then they almost need a little bit of a breather to get that back. I think for Phil, playing for Bulgaria, playing in a good game for them, scoring a good goal, arriving sort of late in the box and finishing it off. So can only be positive, but that's what you hope for all your international players. You hope that they all have a positive experience one way or the other and come back in a better shape.
Yeah, I guess not much more from me really, but I guess the word on Will Boggs this week picking up the FIFA Pro Award.
Yeah, incredible. I think the campaign from the club, from Ryan and from Will and the whole team. But it's very rare. I think you see in football, a player making such a big difference off the pitch, because I think we're all guilty of it. Players do a little bit, and some will do more than others. But I think for someone like Volksy, he's been a shining light. I think he should be incredibly proud for the club first and foremost, but also for his family. For him to pick up such a prestigious award and a well-deserved award. But and hopefully it shines even bigger spotlight on what they're trying to achieve there. So really proud to to see that and see someone representing our club in such a great way. So very unusual as well to get a player that's currently playing that actually making such a difference as well off the pitch. So it's a really, really proud moment for him and for us as well.